Your job is to elevate the people that report to you so that they can do their best work. You have to create like a clear destination for everybody to go to. So, I mean, most people's questions are going to be like about the what are we doing and how do we get it done and that kind of stuff. Why are we doing this work? Your job is to be very clear on the why and then very supportive in how things are accomplished, you know.
I'd like to welcome you to the Corner Office Chronicles podcast. My name is Byron Benton, affectionately known as Byron the Product Enthusiast. This is dedicated to product management and entrepreneurship. So please, lend an ear, perhaps two. Tune into today's episode. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Corner Office Chronicles podcast. My name is Byron Benton, and I am your host. Today, I have a special guest. He is a creative director. He is a creative manifesto, and he is the guy that we want to speak to when it comes to creative design. I'd like to welcome everyone. And if you don't mind, there's not a live audience, but if we could, I would love to clap for Mr. Monte Michael Ellis. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing really well. Thanks for having me.
All right, no problem. Thank you very much for joining, sir. I know we have to make it sure. I know you're a busy man. You have things to do. If you don't mind, how did you get into the creative director space?
That's a great question. So I went to school for animation. I thought I was going to work in TV, but in the city that I lived in at that time, there was more opportunity in software. So I got into video games as a result of that. That led to art direction and then software development and stuff outside of games. And I had really good mentors who were creative directors, and I wanted to be like them. So I kind of changed focus out of games, out of entertainment, and other types of product development, and that's how I got to where I'm at now.
Okay, okay. Is there a big difference between let's say the being creative when it comes to let's say a regular websites or regular design versus a video game as far as industries? Or is great
Yeah,
design simply great design, no matter the.
sure. Well, the truth is, like, I think all design, whether you're working in product development or in more specific software like games, it all depends on how well you understand your audience. Like, who are you making what you're making for, and why are you doing it? So, in that sense, whether you're working in business to business software for enterprise audiences or for home consumers on a game console, it's pretty similar. You just have to know who you're making things for and what they want and why you're making the choices you're making. It gets a little different depending on the company that you work with, and those differences are mostly based on the way the teams are set up, the software that you use, and the budgets associated with those projects. But I've always found that, like, the more you can learn about creativity, the more you can learn about making a effective creative atmosphere for people. You can apply that knowledge to any development space,
Mhm.
because answering those questions of how and what and why and making a space that allows people to work well together is valuable anywhere that you go. It doesn't have to be a video game.
Yeah, definitely understand. Let me ask you. Um, you had a chance to work for startups. You had a chance to work for other size businesses, including enterprises as well. Do you think that when it comes to large enterprise positions, is it still is it at a cost like maybe creativity? You think, or do you think this creativity starts with smaller companies, or does it matter? Everyone, you know, can be creative.
Well, the thing I feel about creativity is that it's a human quality. So you don't even have to have, the word creative in your job title to be creative. Human beings are creative. Where human beings get frustrated in the work environment is not having access to their creativity, which is another way of saying that most of our problems are around the mechanics of how we operate. It's not about people not having the right imagination or the right tools or the right skills. Usually we're just set up in a way that doesn't allow us to work well together. So the difference between like a small company and a big company is that there's less connection points at a small company. Usually you're a smaller team. It's really easy to talk directly to a decision maker. It's really easy to identify a partner that you're going to solve some problems with. The larger a company gets, the more difficult it can be to understand those connections, like maybe the decision maker is many levels away from you and you don't know how to engage with them exactly. Or at a larger company, you are joining a team that has been well established for a long time, working on a product that's already live with an audience that uses it every day. And it's more difficult to find how you insert into that working model than if you were starting something new with a small group of people. You know, you're kind of building the relationship definitions at the same time you're building the product, and that can feel different when you're at a large company where everything has been in motion for such a long time.
Okay, okay, okay. So speaking of creativity, what about AI? Is that helping right now? Or is it stifling creativity, or will it stifle
Yeah.
creativity in the future?
Well, I mean, I'm not really an expert on all the nuances that um, go into like an answer to that question. But I can tell you that there's clearly a lot of observable fear in creatives about AI, and I think it's because it's a tool that in many cases has taken the creative output of real people, in some cases without their permission, to train computer models to do that same work, and that feels bad to people who have spent a lifetime like developing the skills and talents and understanding to be effective creators. To have their work kind of slurped up by a machine to then replicate that same output, that's what people don't like. However, we kind of live with machine learning and types of artificial intelligence in everything that we use, right? Like the backup
Yeah,
camera in your car,
yeah,
yes, the algorithms in your entertainment streamers, the Internet of Things inside your household, whether that's an Alexa or a Kindle or a Google network. Um, your email client, we kind of depend on machine learning and for systems to be smart for us in a lot of ways. It's not all exactly the same though as the way AI is being talked about and investigated and developed today. So I think the healthiest way to go forward is to try to understand the tool as a tool, and then hopefully also define limits,
mhm,
or I should say boundaries, between what people will be trusted to do and what you can hand over to an automated system. And I think everything is like happening so quickly in so many different lanes that it's hard to understand exactly what those definitions are going to be, because it's a little bit dependent on all of these various streams coming together at one point to make one rule that applies to that tool in all the places that it's used, and to all the human creators who want to take advantage of that tool but not be taken advantage of.
mhm.
And I think we're a little ways away from knowing what those answers are going to be, but hopefully the answers arrive quickly because the technology is advancing very fast.
Okay, yeah, definitely, definitely. I mean, so fast that probably change tomorrow. They probably come up with a new version of AI tomorrow. Who knows? But being that you work in with big companies and you're a creative director, how do you manage? How can I say this? Keeping your culture collaborative when you're dealing with writers and designers. I mean, how do you put everything together? Because you kind of like what they call it, the I don't know, the ventriloquist, the puppet, not the puppet master, but
Yeah,
how can one put everything together? Like, kind of like
yeah, yeah. I understand. It's a lot. It's a lot to keep an eye on. I will say this, that like what I learned a lot from my mentors was that there's a difference between being a creative director and a creative dictator. Like my job is not to use the people around me to prove my own best ideas to other people. My job is to elevate the best ideas of the people who trust me to keep an eye on everything that we're doing, you know? So I can only really be successful in this job if I have people who feel like that they can trust me to be
Mm-hmm.
clear about where we're going
Yeah.
so that they can be trusted with how we get there. You
Mm-hmm.
know, that's the secret. And if I'm really clear about where we're going, then it's going to communicate collaborations between those domains that have to take place if we're going to be successful. Like if I'm really clear about where we're going, then in that story, it should be very understandable where audio and animation and art have to meet together in order to get us to that place. And I'm trusting the leaders and the contributors in those spaces to say, all right, it's clear that we have to partner with that other group. Let's begin that partnership. Let's do our part. Let's talk to them about what we can expect to get from them, what they would like to receive from us. And if I'm doing my job well, then there's an atmosphere where people can have those conversations in a transparent and effective way, you know. But it's not as effective to tell people across all those lanes what they should do, because that stifles creativity at the end of the day. If they feel like there's only one path forward and it's the one that I was very, very overtly declarative about, then they'll never feel free to explore stuff that they think would be a good solution, right? You're really then hoping that everything you're going to do is going to work out according to one person's best idea. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a mistake. I think you want to like have best ideas from everybody, let the best of the best elevate, and you increase your chances of winning as a team.
Okay. Okay. Well, speak about creativity and managing great components of a team, parts. How do we deal with conflict? Because in the product world, you always hear that some conflict is good because it gives you a different perspective of maybe point of view that you never thought of before. How do you manage? How can one manage such conflicting points of views for the greater good, which
Yeah.
is a great product?
Well, I mean, definitely having different perspectives is very, very valuable. What's not valuable is to set yourself up as an adversary with a teammate. You know, you don't want to go into a conversation with the express goal to be right all the time or to win an argument, because you're not going in to have an argument. You're going in to solve a problem, right?
Mhm.
And there will be different perspectives on how to solve that problem. A good way to like resolve conflict is to keep everybody focused on the goal that we all have, which is usually to provide a specific experience to a very specific audience. You kind of make the audience and the data that we have about that audience the most important voice in the room, right? Everybody goes back and refers to that understanding of the people that we're trying to provide a good experience for.
Mhm.
And and then it doesn't become about whether or not this person's idea is the best or that person's idea is the best, or if this person was right or that person was wrong. That's not the issue. The issue is like, what did we work on together in order to provide the best experience? And I think to be really effective in that way, you have to go in willing to listen. You have to go in there willing and I guess prepared with a solid understanding of what we're trying to provide for our audience. And then also, even when you disagree, to commit to a direction. You know, I often say that, like, because sometimes people worry about a meeting being really expensive because it has a lot of people in it or a lot of high profile leaders or whatever it is. And
Yeah.
my feeling is that a meeting is only expensive if we don't make a decision at
Mhm.
the end of it. You know, that's the only time it's a waste, is if we had everybody together and couldn't align on something. So even if you disagree, if you can kind of like commit to a direction, say like, yep, we all have different opinions, but we feel like this one's the right, and we're going to commit to it. This is the right direction, I should say, and we're going to commit to it. And then everybody is trusted to just keep going that direction. Then then disagreements are fine. You know, um, it's just the arguments that you want to avoid. You know, it's the pettiness that you want to avoid. You know,
Yeah.
and that's why I guess keeping the audience in the front of your mind, and then making sure you get to a decision that everybody is aligned to at the end of every call, that you'll be okay most of the time.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I agree, 100%. What are some of the let's see, what are some of the challenging aspects of being a creative director, and what are some of the joys of it? And keep in
Yeah,
mind, I
yeah,
didn't say what you didn't like. I just said some of the challenges, and
sure.
you overcome them, turning them into joy.
The That's a great question. The challenge is, I guess, um, well, there's like a kind of a famous prioritization model. It's referred to often as the Eisenhower matrix. I think this is named after that president because he was a fan of it, but I'm not sure that it originated with him. But basically, and you can read about it in texts like um, the Seven Habits of Highly Effective People and everything. But
Yeah,
if you have like two
very
axes,
powerful.
and one of them is like urgency, and the other axis is uh, I guess if it's urgency one way and it's importance the other way, then you kind of plot stuff in these four grids where you could be working on stuff that's really important and it's urgent, stuff that's not important and urgent, stuff that's really important and not urgent, and then stuff that's not important and not urgent. That's how those boxes would fill out. So I guess what's frustrating when you're a creative director, you can feel like, I know I'm working on important stuff, but everything feels like an emergency. It's just so we gotta do this in a way that doesn't make it feel like it's a burning fire every day when we wake up. And it can also feel bad, those other two really terrible boxes on that matrix, which is like you're working on something not important and it's an emergency. It's like, why are we in such a rush to do something we don't need? Or you're working on nothing that's important and it takes forever and you don't really have any real direction. That stuff feels terrible. Most of the time you're in that box though, where it's like, if you're having a rough day, I know what we're doing is important, but it just feels so frantic.
Hmm.
I feels joyful to do the work when you're working on important stuff and you're doing it mindfully. Like it's not urgent. You saw it coming and you're able to prepare for it, and you're able to ship it on time and then anticipate the next thing. So operationally, that's like the difference between, I guess, being frustrated at work and feeling effective. And then, of course, a lot of joy comes for me in the job when the stuff that I'm responsible for, I can see it all coming together. Like I'm responsible for that creative atmosphere. I'm responsible for communicating clearly where we're going. And when I can see people understand that um, destination, they can picture it in their own mind, and that they're working really well together, I feel great about my job. Like some of my favorite moments is when I talk to other leaders um, that I direct, and they tell me about a meeting that they had without me and that they made this decision, and they're just informing me about what they did. And I just get to say, yes, that's great. Go ahead. Thanks for letting me know. That's like the best feeling. It's like, that's evidence that like we all understand where we're going. I trust them to get us there. They're taking care of it. They're keeping me in the loop. They're leaders. They don't have to like ask me permission about everything that what they need to do. They can just do it. And they are doing it, and we're making progress across all the lanes we're responsible for. That's a great feeling.
Okay, okay. Now, as a creative director, um, yeah, I mean, as we know, we spoke about earlier, there's a rapid development of technology. How do we take that and manage that for when it comes to game creation, new players and the I guess long time fans? How do we bridge those? So
Yeah, that's a great question. Like I mean, the this is again an answer that there's not like going to be an answer that will work in every situation where that happens, because there's so many different play spaces. There's so many different segments of the audience with different desires and needs. There's rapidly evolving new platforms. There's never going to be a rule that you can just stick to forever outside of this, and that is to have a really good connection with your community, with the audience, to know what they enjoy doing most of the time, and where do they, I feel like I say this at work, that what we must do is a combination of the things that we can measure the most, you know. So like for a player, what do they most enjoy doing? What places do they occupy the most? Who do they like being in those spaces with the most? All those things add up to the stuff that we must do. We have to like give them a great experience then in that place with those people with that type of experience, you know.
Okay.
And I feel like if you can do that effectively, if that can just be like natural behavior for you, then when new tools and new platforms roll around, you'll just learn everything you need to know about them, and you'll decide whether or not it's relevant for the people you're making stuff for. Most of the times it will be, and your job will be like, okay, well, let's learn about it and uh, and keep a good communication line of communication, I should say, open with our audience to find out how they feel about it. And then when we know how they feel about the experiences they have, we can then, as professionals, look at these new tools, these new platforms, and decide how best to utilize them to give them the experience that they want. You know,
Wonderful.
so there's never going to be one thing you can do, but whatever you do, I think, is always going to be dependent on how well you know the people that you are making things for.
Okay. Okay. And I know you say you have to stop really soon. Do you have 5 minutes? Or you have to go?
I probably have, yeah, 3 more minutes. Probably I can. Yeah,
Okay,
I'll be
okay,
driving.
okay, okay, okay. All right. So if you have uh any advice for any up and coming creative directors or anyone that's creative and they're trying to bridge that with product, because at the end of the day we're all trying to make great product. We're trying to show our best light through something that we created. Any advice for up and coming
Yeah.
creative?
Um, well, I'm gonna kind of put in my own words just a bunch of feelings that I got from creative directors who were good mentors to me, and my encouragement for people who want to do that type of work is to recognize that your job is not to be responsible for everything that is made. I mean, and by responsible, I mean it's not your job to put your fingerprints on everything. Your job is to elevate the people that report to you so that they can do their best work. You have to create like a clear destination for everybody to go to. So, I mean, most people's questions are going to be like about the what are we doing and how do we get it done and that kind of stuff. Why are we doing this work? Your job is to be very clear on the why and then very supportive in how things are accomplished. You know, um, I don't. You shouldn't go into it looking to be the boss. You know, you should go into it looking to, you know, be in a position to empower the best performing team. You know, that's the best way to go about it. I think. Like, if your goal is to like tell people what to do, and you get value out of that, you're not going to be as effective as somebody who does a lot of listening and then brings the right people together to do something that couldn't be done by one person.
Okay,
So
okay. And let me ask you,
that's
I know you have to go. Uh, from creative to a creative, what are some of the not things that you had anything to do with, but outside of where we what we normally do? Do you have a favorite app, favorite website, favorite game, or anything like that that you're not associated with?
um, well, I mean, yeah, it's something that I've never worked on. Um,
Maybe that you would want to work.
yeah, I mean, I guess that's a really good question, and I don't know. This is probably more about how I like to feel in order to be creative. Because any app or anything that I use, you have things you're like, boy, I wish it did this instead, or I really like this. I wish I could find an app that just did this part, not the other things. So I'll just have to answer by saying there's apps that I've never worked on any of these, but I use them every day because I feel like it helps me be creative. And and Spotify is one of those apps. I listen to music every day. I feel like that helps me be creative. If I didn't have Spotify, um, I would need some kind of direct injection of music, I guess, in order to do my job. I benefit a lot from Wikipedia. It's one of the um, destinations that I'm really comfortable supporting
Yeah,
because I get so much
value.
value out of it. And um, and then outside of the digital screen, most of the stuff that I enjoy, that help me be creative are things that are more physical, right? So like I read a lot. I'm a real big. I mean, if I didn't have libraries and like physical bookstores, I don't think I'd be as creative as I am. If I didn't have physical record stores or physical musical instrument stores, I play a lot of instruments when
Okay.
I'm not doing stuff that I do for work. So that's the most important stuff for me. I think like I use Spotify all the time, I use Wikipedia all the time. I go to bookstores, I go to music shops, and then lastly, I I guess I'm a big. This is a weird thing to say when most of us, and me included, like work remotely, but I'm really happy for things uh, like public transit. Like I feel like in order to be creative, you got to like reset yourself cognitively a lot. So if I'm inside the space I work in constantly, I have to get out of that space. So parks and public transit, those are probably the things I take advantage of the most. I feel like that probably has the most positive impact on my creativity, like resetting my imagination by being in a different spot. So that's a good question.
Okay, okay. Last question. If anyone wants to see your work or keep in touch with you, how can they do so?
Um, that's a great question. I mean, people can if they're interested, they could probably look up what I share and post on LinkedIn. That's the best place to do it.
By your
Especially
name.
work. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's all just by my name. So that's probably the best way to keep up with me professionally. I'm not real great at sharing other work on other platforms
There you
because
go.
mostly, like I said, I try to get outside and away from doing this stuff so I can be really focused on it when I need to be.
There you go.
And yeah, that's been effective for me. Not for everybody, but it works for me.
Well, there you go. Like I said, always, and I asked you a couple times for the podcast. You did it. You delivered great answers. That's a nice hat you have on. Nice glasses,
Yeah,
by the way. Thank you very much for joining the podcast, sir. It's been a pleasure.
yeah. Thank you, Byron. Talk to you later.
All right, have a good one.
So thanks for watching today's episode of the Corner Office Chronicles podcast. Again, my name is Byron Benton, and I am your host, affectionately known as Byron the Product Enthusiast. Please like, subscribe, and tune in. Until next time, thanks for watching.